A Plaguelands Media production.
Hey everyone, this is Hugh from Plaguelands Media bringing you another book review today. So, cheers. Now, today I'm bringing you a book that kind of jumped out at me when I was kind of browsing on Amazon. And I thought it was going to be something completely different. So, the book is I Shot the Devil by Ruth McIver. And one of the reasons why I was initially drawn to this was because Steve Kavanagh actually gave it an endorsement on the back of the blurb. This book reminds me of the first time I read Mystic River by Dennis Lehane. It's that good. Mystic River, of course, a fantastic book, but Steve Kavanagh, a fantastic author. So I thought, you know what? Let's give this one a go. It was released, I believe, at the end of last month. I pre-ordered this, thinking that it was going to be something that it actually wasn't. And I'm not saying that like it's a bad thing, because it surprised me in a really fucking good way. But the basic premise is 5 kids from Long Island. Those of you that are not familiar with American geography, Long Island is like the bottom of New York, very close to Connecticut. And believe me, I actually had to look this up because I was interested in the geography of where this all was taking place. But these kids are from Long Island. They're friends. They're into... It's set in the crime that happens in the 90s, but these kids are into metal and that kind of a thing, and they drink and smoke weed and do drugs and whatnot. And 5 of them go into the woods one night, and only 3 of them come out. And then years later, one of their friends, who was not a participant in what actually happened, is asked to look into it because she's a journalist working for a kind of a magazine / newspaper. And she's asked to look into it, and she goes back and starts doing some digging, and then shit hits the fan. Now, in my mind, this was very... The description of it, I should say, was very similar in tone to those kids back in the day that were played D&D and did all that stuff, and then someone was killed in the town, and they're like, oh, those kids are Satanists, and they were wrongfully imprisoned for a murder that they didn't commit, or because the parents didn't kind of understand them. That's what I thought this would be. No, not even fucking close to that at all. So when the story kind of veers off and takes that twist, I'm just like, what the fuck is going on? Loving every single minute of it. This was a fantastic crime story with one of the best tropes. I love this trope of the unreliable narrator. A character who is telling the story, but as the reader, you never know if their memories are right, if what they're saying is correct. We get it twice in this book. We get it from the main narrator, this journalist called Erin Sloan, but we also get it through a series of chapters of a novel that are being sent to her by one of the people that was imprisoned for the crime that was committed back in 1994. A character that we find out may or may not be entirely telling the truth. I loved it. Absolutely enjoyed every minute of this. up until the very end, which I thought was slightly lackluster. However, that didn't detract from the story itself. That was just my personal feelings, and it could have been because I finished this book at like 11:45 last night, and I was freaking tired, and when I woke up in the morning, I had to go back and reread the final 2 chapters. So, what I'm not going to do in this review, it's something that I do in a lot of my reviews. I'm not going to try and spoil anything. I don't want you as the audience to know who committed the said crimes. What I am going to do is explain the character relationships, how they intermingle, and how they ultimately lead to the climax of the story. I'm not going to give that away, however. I want you to go out and I want you to read this for yourself, or at least watch the movie or the Netflix special, because I am 100% certain there is going to be one. That's how good this was. So, with that said, let's just get right into the next episode of...
Read a fucking book. Read a fucking book. Read a fucking book. People.
I Shot the Devil is a really interesting book in as much as you have the narrator, this character called Erin Sloan. Her father, R.P. Sloan, was a former cop who now has dementia and is in a nursing home. And he's not a good man. At least he wasn't when Erin was growing up. Erin's mother and younger sister Shelley passed away due to carbon monoxide poisoning. Was it murder? We don't know. So before the events that led to the killing of 2 people, who were Erin's friends, I might add. She was friends with everyone in this book. Her and her father have moved away, and she's in a boarding school, and she doesn't really interact with the characters at the time of the killings. Now, what happened in the woods? We have 5 people. We have Andre Villas. He is a kind of dumbass. People have suspected him in child kidnappings and sexual assaults. We have Danny. He was Erin's boyfriend, came from a rich family. His father is a doctor. We have Carol and Cormac O'Malley. Cormac was Irish-Australian who was adopted by a police officer that happened to work with R.P. Sloan. And we have Ricky Hell. And Ricky Hell is kind of like the leader of this group. And it's implied that they lured Andre into the woods in order to kill him because all of these people have younger sisters, and it's implied that Andre interfered with some young girls and they just wanted to kill him off. That's the crime. 5 went into the woods, 2 never came back. The 2 being Andre and, of course, Ricky, because the cop, Sean, who was Cormac's stepfather, shot Ricky dead. So that was the 2 that didn't come back. So this is the main premise, and as Erin is looking into this, it becomes clear that that is not at all what fucking happened. And that everyone has been lying and twisting the truth. So we have like Carol, who was Cormac's girlfriend. She was sleeping with the cop that shot Ricky. RP, Erin's father, was the first on the scene, but he was an alcoholic who was sleeping with his own partner, this woman called Mona. And he and Mona interviewed the three that came out of the woods. The three of them were all charged, by the way, and one of them spent time in juvenile, and the other two spent less time in prison, and then they were released and went on to kind of live their lives. Cormac went back to Australia. His sister, Aisling, who their stepfather kind of hated, is communicating with Erin through these chapters of a book that Cormac was writing. And it goes on and on and on. And you find out that moment in the woods is the least of the fucking story, because there is an underlying story about 3 children that were kidnapped, and they suspected Andre, but then he was already dead by the time the last one was kidnapped. And then it becomes this serial killer thing, but then it's not. And as Erin is slowly putting the pieces together, finding out that her father was a dirty cop, and that her sister knew the sisters of all these people that were apparently Andre had preyed upon. And it just becomes this twisted fucking web that culminates in 3 crimes. Not the one crime, but 3 crimes actually being kind of resolved in a way. Now, I'm not going to tell you how they were resolved. I'm not going to tell you what happens. I honestly believe this is a book that, if I spoiled it on this video, would be just a complete injustice. An absolute injustice. This is a book that you kind of need to read for yourself, and every time you finish a chapter, you've got to put it down and just absorb what the fuck you just read and how the fuck that just turned the story on a new angle. It's one of those books. Now, it says here, one of the freshest debuts to come in a long time. But if you read Ruth McIver's bio at the end of this book, it says her first novel was called Nothing Gold, from 2018. So I don't know why people are calling this a debut novel, but I don't really care. Absolutely loved every minute of this. The characters are well-rounded. You have the relationship between Erin and Danny back in the early 90s, which starts out good, but he is this control freak that hurts her, and she can't kind of get away from that, to the point where he actually carves a pentagram and the number 666 into her body, and then apologizes for hurting her. One of those fucking creep-ass cunts. You have Ricky Hell, who we find out is not who you think he is, but I can't tell you who he is because that would spoil a major point of the book. But Erin is in love with Ricky Hell, and so there is a love triangle there between Danny, Ricky, and Erin. But then you have Cormac, who is dating Carol, but it's implied that he's in love with Ricky as well. Carol is sleeping with the bad cop. And then when you move to the present, all of these people are involved in a kind of like a housing pyramid scheme in Florida. So there's that angle with it as well, that she kind of goes down, Erin goes down to investigate and gets caught up in that. It's a twist and a turn and a twist and a turn, and there was never a dull fucking moment. There was never a point in this book where I'm like, Jesus, could you just get to the fucking point, please? This was phenomenal. One of the best thrillers I have read in a long, long time. It's just, the characterization is perfect. The story has enough twists and turns to keep you hanging on. Yes, I said the ending was a little bit lackluster, but the ending's not the book. The book is the book. It's not about the ending. It's about the fucking journey to get there. And again, I was tired when I read the ending. So maybe it didn't have the impact that it would have had I been kind of awake and properly cognizant. But, you know, whatever. Loved it. Ruth McIver, I Shot the Devil. Highly recommend it. Not going to spoil it because you just need to fucking go out and read this for yourself. Or when it comes out, watch the Netflix, HBO show, the movie, whatever. It's going to happen. I guarantee it. It is going to happen. That's how good this fucking book was. If you enjoyed the video, like, subscribe, you know, do all the stuff that everyone else fucking does on YouTube, and there's buttons down below. Click them and do whatever and whatnot. But most importantly, and I cannot stress this enough, people, have a drink. Stay safe. Have a fantastic rest of your day. But most importantly, read a fucking book, people.